Hello, you guys. I hope that y'all are having a really good week. Today's book that I'm going to read is This Moose Belongs to Me by Oliver Jeffers. Before I get into the book, I want to give you guys a challenge. I want for you to explain the different zones to your parents. Now, I'll give you a little refresher. We know what it means to be green, blue, yellow, and red. So I want you to explain what those mean to your parents. And then if they have questions, they can hop on Dojo or shoot me a message. Everybody's got my cell phone number, or you should by this point. Let's hop into our book. This Moose Belongs to Me. Wilfred owned a moose. He hadn't always owned a moose. The moose came to him a while ago, and he just knew, that it was meant to be his. He thought he would call him Marcel. So look up here, he's giving him a little name tag to his antlers. He began following Marcel, explaining the rules of how to be a good pet. Much of the time, it seemed as though the moose wasn't listening. But Wilfred knew he was, mostly because he followed rule number 4 very well. Not making too much noise while Wilfred plays his record collection. Do y'all have to follow a rule like that at home where you can't get too loud and crazy? I try to make my kids follow that rule. They're playing Legos right now, and it sounds a little wild in there. Sometimes the moose wasn't a very good pet. He generally ignored rule number 7, going whichever way Wilfred wants to go. So the moose kind of likes to do his own thing. The moose had a very good sense of direction, and Wilfred did not. And because the moose was particularly poor at rule number 7, subsection B, maintaining a certain proximity to home, Wilfred quickly learned to bring some string along on their outings so he could find his way back. So he's got this long ball of yarn, and I guess he tied it to his doorknob. And so he rolls out the string and he follows his moose everywhere. Sometimes the moose was an excellent pet. He had no trouble with rule number 11, providing shelter from the rain. Or rule number 16, knocking down things that are out of Wilfred's reach. He says, "Good work." He's knocking down all the apples so the little boy can get them. One day, as Wilfred discussed their plans for the coming year on a particularly long walk, he made a terrible discovery. Uh-oh, what do we think happened? See, he's still got his long string. I don't know if you can see it. Someone else thought she owned the moose. "Rodrigo, you're back." This little old lady, she's calling him Rodrigo, but that's Marcel, right? Wilfred was dumbstruck. This moose was Marcel, not Rodrigo. The old lady was mistaken, and Wilfred thought it only proper that he correct her. "This moose belongs to me," he explained. And to prove it, he called Marcel. "Heel, boy." But the moose did not respond. He seemed more interested in the old lady. Good, Rodrigo." Embarrassed and enraged, Wilfred rushed off for home. Fine. I like how the author drew his eyebrow, like he's kind of doing this. It's a good facial expression. You can tell he's frustrated. And up here, he just did some scribbles. Like sometimes when I'm feeling frustrated, like you can imagine some scribbles above my head. All right, so embarrassed, he's heading off home. But in his haste and miles from anywhere, he tripped over his string and got all tangled up. Oh no. And there he lay. Oh, look, he's blue. There he lay. Do you think he feels blue like our blue that we talk about in class? Wilfred was beginning to get a little bit worried. It was getting late, and the monsters would be out soon. He had just ruled out the last of his options. So he had thought about, I guess he was thinking about getting a penguin or a saw. Maybe he was going to use a saw to cut the string. Oh, look. Here's a shark, like a swordfish or something. He's thinking about all these different ideas. This is another character actually from an Oliver Jeffers book. So he's thinking about all these things he could use. Who's coming? When along came the moose. And he performed Rule 73 brilliantly, rescuing your owner from perilous situations. All was forgiven, and perhaps Wilfred admitted he'd never really owned the moose anyway. With that in mind, he and the moose reached a compromise. The moose would agree to all of Wilfred's rules. Oh, look, he's imagining Marcel. He's dressed like a butler, and he's delivering a drink to him whenever it suited him. Uh-oh, he's telling him, sit right here. Is the moose listening? Uh-oh. Dominic, you're back, and you brought me an apple. That's not Wilfred, and it's not the old lady. It would seem that this moose is owned by a lot of different people. So, are we able to own wild animals? No, we're not. They're owned by nature. So, anyway, I wanted to hop on and read you guys a book. I miss all of you terribly, terribly, terribly. As a reminder, talk about those zone colors. What does it mean if you're feeling blue? We saw an example of it in the book. What does it mean when you're feeling yellow or red? What does it mean when you're feeling green? Talk to your parents about that. Parents, I would encourage you to use that language of those colors whenever you're working with your kids at home. Because sometimes I'll notice, oh, you're looking a little bit yellow. I don't want you to get red, because then that can throw off our day. And I can make another video to explain that a little more if you guys would like it. Bye, y'all.